Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Libraries in Response. We are, sorry, we are flubbing the screen share. We are the Gigabit Libraries Network, and this is session number 113 in our series. Uh, since March of 2020. Um, This session today focuses on this compendium of visionaries imagining the next generation of libraries 10 years from now, as edited by Sandra Hirsh of San Jose State University. We are the Gigabit Libraries Network, an open consortium of libraries doing interesting things, we think, with technology. Our host and co-produced partner is IFLA, the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions based in The Hague. At the helm is the head of public policy for IFLA, Stephen Weiber. Thank you again, Stephen. Our series sponsor this year is IMLS, who has come through with a grant to help support this ongoing series. This is our image that we've adopted as a kind of a symbol for how we see libraries in response as the world facing these various compounding challenges since the pandemic and climate and AI now, and then this political stress that experiencing at different levels around the world. These are all recorded and they're all available on the YouTube channel, Libraries in Response YouTube channel. You can find it and they're all there. This one will be up soon. Uh, because we were kind of projecting future, I went back and looked at our projections from 2007 when we actually founded the Gigabit Libraries Network. And we saw these three roles primarily emerging for libraries as an early adopter of technology to kind of showcase and community test bed for these things that come up. A natural thing, a natural place for libraries. And then this important face of e-government, we say, that every agency at every level of government is spawning these applications. They don't look alike, they don't work alike. And by the way, who are they for? Okay, they're for people that have a connection. Well, what about the people that don't have a connection? Oh, well, they can go to the library. Oh, good. Well, did you give the library additional resources to take on your support role? No. Why not? Well, we didn't have to. Okay, thanks very much. Well, anyway, libraries, as usual, take on anything that people ask them to do, and then this one, which has been a returning role in disaster response as second responders when large-scale events overwhelm first responders, and everybody becomes a potential responder. So libraries and schools as shelters and communication hubs and places to charge devices, it's increasingly important and predicted to keep increasing. This is our esteemed lineup today. Sandra Hirsh, Associate Dean of Academics and College Information and Data Society at San Jose State, which hosts, I believe, the world's largest library school. And Sandy's coming back. She's been with us before. Also coming back is Kelvin Watson, now the executive director of the Las Vegas County Library District. And how long ago? That was some time ago, Kelvin. I believe that was maybe the second year we were in business. We had a great session. And then for the first time, Joyce Valencia, associate professor teaching at Rutgers University and besieged by demands of her institution for keeping up with a load of work that is daunting. But we're so happy to have you, Joyce, for the first time and hopefully not the last time. Um, the the imagining the next generation of libraries is a wonderful gathering of people that are willing to project, go on the line and project what they expect or hope will happen. And it's a great list of potential speakers. So I want to thank you extra for that, Sandy. I can imagine us having a lineup of people that have contributed to ask them, like we're asking you today. Do you feel differently today than you did when you submitted your entry into the Library 2035? This is I would like to pluck a couple of quotes from our presenters here. Now, these are just fragments of things that they've turned in that you probably read on the registration page. Libraries, librarians who commit to innovation, stay ahead of emerging technologies, strongly advocate their value, and will stand strong and tall and as essential community resource. Absolutely, absolutely beautiful quote. And Kelvin says the future of libraries providing ongoing integral resources to communities will serve by determined by the partnerships and collaborations. Kelvin is a collaboration master, and that is such a big factor in the success of libraries in their communities, which are in fact collaborations. And Joyce weighs in with a sense of urgent optimism. Let's investigate our roles for addressing information equity and potential for leadership in shifting landscape and the critical need for shaping human-centered, evidence-based change. Human-centered in an age of tsunami of IT is a beautiful sentiment and one we're pursuing. This was Library Journal who was very impressed with this work, and this is their recommendation. Just quick, this is our upcoming schedule, our lineup. Today, of course, Sandy, Kelvin, and Joyce. Next week, we'll have the state librarians from Florida and North Carolina talking about how libraries in their states have weathered these storms, these unbelievable storms that just came through, and the roles that the libraries played, how they were affected, and then how they were of extra service to people in those situations. And then in the new year, we have the library directors from both the Denver and the Boston Public, a couple of outstanding individuals and practitioners. Bill McKibben on the 16th is our champion eco warrior, our climate change. He's right behind Greta Thunberg in the kind of the leadership role of what we really have to do to get a handle on this stuff. Our focus has been more on adaptation, roles that libraries can play in adapting to these changes, which are permanent. I mean, almost as permanent as you can get, and irrevocable and accumulating. So there's mitigation. Yes, everybody needs to do something, but adaptation is what we can do individually and as a community, and libraries are key to that. Vint Cerf, everybody should know Vint is the co-father of the internet itself, inventing TCP/IP, and as an experiment, and then it's still running this experiment. It's a great story, and Vint will be back. And then the Benton Foundation Leadership and Connectivity for Anchor Institutions. So here we are, and let's get to it. I will exit this, and then I will turn it over to Sandra Hirsh to lead us off, and then Sandra will talk a little bit, Kevin will talk a little bit, Joyce will talk a little bit, and then we'll open it for conversation. So Sandy, welcome back, and please tell us how this all came about. Well, whatever you want to tell us.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Don. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me back and for the opportunity to talk to you all today. I'm really delighted to be here, and I'm especially delighted to be here and joined by two of my outstanding contributors to Library 2035, Imagining the Next Generation of Libraries. I'm so happy to be here with Joyce Valenza and Kelvin Watson. So I thought I would take a few minutes today just to give you a little bit of an overview about the book, and then talk about some of the themes. So first off, I wanted to pose to you the question I posed to the contributors to the book, which was basically this question right here. The library in 2035 will be or will not be. And then I left it up to them to decide how they wanted to tackle that question. Certainly a challenging question to think about, but I had 29 excellent library leaders who were generous about contributing their perspectives and answering this particular question. So, Library 2035, Imagining the Next Generation of Libraries, builds upon actually an earlier work that was called Library 2020, Today's Leading Visionaries Describe Tomorrow's Library, which was edited by Joe Janes. And that one speculated about the future of libraries about a decade ago. But obviously, there's a lot that has changed over the past decade. And it was time for us to take a fresh look about what the future of libraries will look like. And so I divided the book into 6 parts, as you can see here. Part one: landscape, community, equity, inclusion, organizations, library workers, and vision. And also, I wanted to mention that the book, I accompanied the book with webcast interviews that I did with almost all of the contributing authors, and to build upon and to explore more about some of their thoughts about the future of libraries. And those are available for free. So I thought, in terms of how I might tackle this presentation today, that I might kind of center it around some of the questions that Don actually included in his invitation to you today to join this session. So I thought I'd talk about some of the book's themes in relation to those questions. So one of the questions he put in his invitation was, what changes are in store for libraries of all types? And first, I'd say that libraries will need to serve as community hubs. And throughout the book, contributors did discuss the importance of libraries serving as community hubs to foster connection, civic engagement, and collaboration with their communities. And libraries will serve as community hubs by providing spaces for community connection and civic engagement, by adapting to diverse community needs, by offering inclusive and accessible services, and also by collaborating with community leaders and policymakers. Second, libraries will need to adapt to ongoing technological advancements. Innovations that we're well aware of, like AI, VR, augmented reality, robotics, they're all will be redefining how libraries manage and disseminate information. For example, library patrons will be able to explore historical archives in new ways as technologies evolve, such as using VR simulations to deepen their understanding of the past. These technologies will enhance information retrieval and make accessing knowledge more user-friendly. And as libraries adopt new and emerging technologies, they will also need to evolve their services, such as ensuring that reference services remain accessible, ethical, and centered on human needs. Sorry, I went backwards. Why is it going this way? Here we go. So, third, libraries will need to adjust to changing political, economic, and environmental factors. And that's happening all around us. And Don was just talking about some of the issues that we need to be paying attention to. So, for example, as job security and living costs fluctuate, libraries must adapt their services to meet the evolving needs of their communities and foster resilience in face of political instability and ensuring public trust. And there was also a strong theme across the book on sustainability, just like what Don was talking about libraries needing to design new spaces and services to ensure that they're not only future ready, but also environmentally sensitive and conscious. And fourth, libraries will need to preserve inclusivity and privacy for their communities. So while library connections and technological advances will foster many opportunities for libraries in the future, they also do present significant challenges. And some of those threats to the information landscape in the future will include issues around increased concerns around bias, privacy, and ethics, threats to intellectual freedom, which we've been experiencing, increased demands, and also increased demands to protect user data and privacy. So, to preserve inclusivity and privacy, the Library of the Future will need to create more welcoming and inclusive environments for all, remove some of the barriers, and address challenges that are faced by marginalized communities, and also will work to safeguard intellectual freedom and also ensure that all patrons can access information securely and privately. So one of this quote, I wanted to surface one of the quotes from one of the contributors, Erin Berman, to the book. She wrote chapter 4, Teetering on the Edge of Trust Cliff, and she highlighted the role that libraries will have in protecting the library landscape. And she said, now is the time to fight for updated privacy laws. Now is the time to push back on vendor products that violate privacy. Now is the time to stand up for our users from less privileged situations who desperately need libraries to be a safe haven, privacy safe haven. So now a second question that Don posed in his invitation was, will the library of the future see greater or less public support? So again, I'm going to draw on some of the book themes to address this question. So the Library 2035 provides a glimpse into some of the evolving roles and the importance of libraries, all types of libraries in the future. And throughout the book, the contributors wrote about their belief in the library's ability in the future to build and foster community connections, something that was strongly echoed in the recently published IFLA 2024 Trend Report. So the libraries of the future will remain at the heart of their communities. They'll serve as centers for social connection and civic engagement. They'll offer programs and services tailored to community needs. They'll create welcoming and inclusive environments for all. They'll remove barriers and address challenges faced by marginalized communities, and they'll provide spaces that are inclusive, welcoming, and adaptive to the changing societal demands. So while the Library of the Future will remain a valued entity in the community, gaining and preserving the public support is something that we need to work at. And libraries must remain diligent in building and retaining their community's trust and advocating for their value, telling their stories, and ensuring that library services remain equitable, inclusive, and diverse. So, first, libraries must reinforce their credibility as reliable sources of information in an era of renegotiated trust. This will require libraries to quickly adapt to their community's changing needs and to provide safe places for learning, working, exploring, and playing. Second, libraries must actively advocate for their libraries and library services in their communities and develop strong storytelling skills to effectively communicate their value. And these narratives can help foster community support, influence policymakers, and when needed, restore trust. And then third, many book contributors discuss the importance of equity, diversity, and inclusion, or EDI, and its relevance to the future of libraries. And many of these chapters are included in part 3 of the book, although that theme is really throughout the book. But book contributors discussed how EDI needs to be incorporated not only into library services, but also into the development of library programs. And so they recommended collaborating with the community members to develop cultural heritage events, diversity training workshops, or other initiatives aimed at expanding education and career opportunities for underrepresented groups. Alexia Hudson Ward, author of Chapter 13, Open, Inclusive, and Diverse, the Academic Library of 2035, she sums up Part 3 nicely by stating in her webcast interview, I see our future as being remarkably dynamic, remarkably complex, remarkably interesting, remarkably diverse, but definitely situated within the context of a more inclusive structure that takes into consideration the evolutionary changes that are happening not just within the US, but throughout the world. And then finally, the third question that Don posed in his announcement focused on libraries and cross institutional collaborations. So while the book contributors didn't actually use that term cross institutional collaborations, they did frequently discuss the importance of collaborations and partnerships in providing value, sustainability, and relevance to the library. So libraries in the future will need to partner with outside institutions and agencies to enhance their services, share resources, foster innovation, and stay abreast of the latest technologies and their capabilities. Libraries will need to partner, collaborate, and co create with their communities to foster equity and diversity and encourage that sense of inclusion. Specifically, they'll need to collaborate on the development of cultural programming. They'll need to ensure their offerings are genuinely reflective of the desires and needs of those that they're serving by engaging their patrons in decision making process. And they'll also need to build trust and ownership among community members through engagement and collaboration. And then finally, some of the authors also envisioned and universal libraries, sharing library cards and membership across libraries, in addition to sharing library resources. Patty Wong, author of Chapter 8, The Library as Community Enthusiast, Champion, and Advocate, summarizes the need for us to always be willing to adapt, evolve, and respond to the changing needs of our communities, and also to work on ideas for what the future holds for libraries and work with our communities together on that. And so from her webcast interview, she said, we need to be agile and nimble and forward thinking. We need to have that sense of appreciative inquiry where we continue to learn as an organization to bring ideas together and holistically approach the changing needs of our community. I also wanted to mention a couple of important elements from Library 2035 that don't directly tie into the questions that Dawn asked. For example, the importance of investing in library workers and strategic foresight and planning. First, it's not just important, it's critical to invest in staff professional development and wellness. Investing in the wellness and development of library workers is not just about improving individual performance, it's about ensuring the sustainability of the institution itself. The future of libraries depends on workers who can adapt to new complexities, and libraries must be proactive in providing the training and support needed to develop these skills. Second, the contributors to the book also stress the importance of strategic foresight and planning to anticipate future challenges and opportunities. In fact, libraries must design future-ready services and spaces that are adaptable to the rapidly changing environment. And they also emphasize the need for resilience and adaptability. Specifically, libraries need to build resilient infrastructures that can withstand technological disruptions and social shifts, while also remaining agile enough to continuously evolve. So as I close, I'd like to leave you with some key themes from Library 2035 contributors. These statements provide kind of a summary of some of the key themes or takeaways from the presentation, as well as some of the highlights from the book. So throughout the accompanying webcasts, I challenged each of the book contributors to summarize their vision of the future of libraries in 6 words or less. And so I pulled out 8 of their responses. I think they're strong and impactful, but I'd love to hear from you about how these statements resonate with you and your own vision about the future of libraries. So, for example, Patty Wong said, community engaged advocate, no wrong door. And David Lankeys said, community centered facilitation for good. And Lynn Conaway said relationship building, collaboration, community focused, adaptability. And Aaron Berman said engaged, community responsive centers of democracy. And Joel Nichols said change always comes, prepare, not repair. And Kelvin Watson said powerful partners, powerful places, powerful people. And Anthony Chow said diverse, user centered, innovative, equitable, and access. And I said libraries are essential for thriving communities. So if you're interested in the webcast interviews, I've included here a QR code that you can scan, and you can also find it on a YouTube playlist by searching for the SJSU School of Information. And if you're interested in the book, you can get a 30% discount using the discount code LIBE 2035 if you order it through Roman and Littlefield. So I just include that here for your information. I also wanted to mention that we recently had in October a really outstanding Library 2.0 virtual conference focused on Library 2035 in early October. And in that 3-hour mini conference that focused on the future of libraries and the books, we had a really great opening keynote panel that I moderated that included Kelvin and Joyce, as well as Peter Hepburn and Jason Griffey. And we also had a really great closing keynote panel focused on library jobs of the future that I moderated with Stacy Aldrich and Jared Keller, who were also contributors to the book. So these recordings and everything are all freely available. So I encourage you to take a look if you're interested. And then I also just wanted to quickly mention that there's a new opportunity for, in case you're interested in building your future ready skills and to be part of Library 2035 through Skill Type. And if you're not familiar with Skill Type, it's a new talent management platform for the library profession that was founded by one of our Library 2035 contributors, Tony Zanders. And it includes a collection of training materials for library professionals to help them continue to build their skills. And there's now a way that you can subscribe as an individual. And to celebrate the launch of the book, he gave us a 20% discount for people who want to sign up as members for the community. So if you're interested, you can use the QR code to scan that to connect with that. So in closing, just thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope this provided a good overview to the book and to the themes and some of the conversation that we will have. It's been a delight to be here, and I'm excited about the rest of the conversation.
Thank you, Sandy. It's a great setup. So many branches of inquiry and discussion and challenge that your presentation and the book itself represent that we want to pursue, all of us, in different ways uh, and through different channels. We have questions, but I think we'll kind of get to those. We get a little more conversational here. I think right now we'd like to hand it over to Kelvin, and he'll bring us up to date on the happenings in Las Vegas County. And is it the name of the county? I think so.
It's Las Vegas, Clark County. Las
Yeah.
Vegas, Clark County. So it's the city and the county and all the other things
Wonderful.
around us. So Sandy set us up pretty great. I'm like, why am I even here? Sandy covered like
Uh,
so I'll get more specific, but for everybody that doesn't know, Las Vegas, Clark County, the library district, we are 25 branches. We cover 8,000 square miles. So we're essentially the size of the state of Connecticut. So we're a pretty vast district, urban as well as rural libraries here in southern Nevada. Our northernmost library is actually in Mesquite, Nevada, which is close to not far from Utah. And our southern library actually is in Laughlin, Nevada, which is on the border of Arizona, Nevada, and California. So again, very vast uh, library district. So as I mentioned, and I've probably done this throughout my career, and that is leveraging and nurturing partnerships. And so I'll get, as I mentioned, a little more specific. Sandy again set us up great. Again, Don, thanks always for having me on, and Joyce, great to participate with you this morning as well. So one of the things that, those 6 words that Sandy asked us to provide, I said powerful: people, places, and partnerships. Those are 3 of the tenets that we live by. We're guided by those here at Las Vegas. They're actually part of our strategic plan, which we call the strategic playbook. So it's more, so we execute on those partnerships. And so when I think about libraries, I think about something that actually occurred last night, which is where one of our branch librarians, Billy Allen, so I'm going to pump that up, Billy Allen, was featured on the Queer Eye, the show, the Netflix program, season 9, episode 8. So you have to check it out, because it actually embodies what we are doing, how I think about libraries and those partnerships. So that partnership, not only with Netflix and Queer Eye, but also with the Nevada filming, the state filming, group that they've now established. So we're connecting with them through this partnership. Last night at the launch party, we actually had members from the community actually attend. So one young lady, she has been coming to the library since she was 11, now brings her kids to that same branch library. And so it was incredible to just see how this partnership just evolved from actually one of my board of trustee members who said, "Hey, I think Billy should be on the Queer Eye show, and we've got this connection." And so it just catapulted from there. The library district here, if you've ever been to Las Vegas in the area, you may be familiar with Pink Box Donuts. So the library district is actually going to be launching a partnership with Pink Box. So when I think of libraries, as mentioned, I think of not only our physical buildings and our spaces, but how we can be in so many other places within the community, including our for-profit partners. So the partnership with Pink Box actually will ultimately include a Pink Box Donut library card. We're going to have a library donut. They'll probably name it. They may name it after me, so we'll see. But the company that owns Pinkbox also owns Siegel Suites, which are the daily, weekly, monthly, like the people when they're transitioning into Nevada, they live in these places. So we're going to be establishing libraries in the Siegel Suites locations throughout Southern Nevada as well. We're about to launch January, beginning in a few weeks, our partnership with the Raiders. So we've already got the Raiders. So if you're a Raiders football fan, we're going to have the Raiders library card, the Raiders other swag, but we're also going to be including them in our story times. So one of the Raiders staff members is a children's author. So we're going to be reading her book, and this is all happening during the library's winter challenge. So we not only do a summer challenge like the summer reading program, we do a winter challenge program as well. So that's the entire month of January. And it's all about the partners and all about the community and all about reading and literacy and all of the things that libraries do. And it's just pushing us out, further into being more recognized. The other thing that we have recently been acknowledged for has been the library district in October was recognized by the Vegas Chamber, the largest chamber in the state, as the large business of the year. So not the large nonprofit of the year, but the large business of the year with 100 plus employees. So that is an accomplishment for a library, I believe, because I've been around a long time, and to see us on the same stage as all these other businesses and when I got up to we were actually a finalist last year. So I was fine. I was glad to take it home this year. But to when I went up on the stage, of course, I talked about the people, the places, the partnerships in that, recognizing our employees, recognizing the work that they do day in and day out, serving our community, serving the library district, and then how the partnerships, though all those businesses that were at that meeting, just to say to them, we're one of you. We're part of this. We're not just the library, but we're a part of this community. We're the community anchor. And those were the words that I shared. And so when I think of libraries in 2035, I'm optimistic, regardless of what's happening with all the politics and all that. I remain optimistic because I believe leaning in to those partnerships and nurturing those will only continue to benefit the library district, and being out in libraries in general, and being not only out in the community, but being a true part of the community. So I'll stop there because I know there's probably some questions, but that's how we're doing it. And I gave you a real small slice. And Sandy, we're like today I'm actually going to the in a few hours, the installation of the new chamber president, who happens to be she's the regional vice president for Cox Communications. And about a year ago, we did a partnership with Cox, providing over 50,000 people in our community with Cox's Wi-Fi network for free. So that's, again, the partnerships and leaning in and doing all of those things. So Don, I'll turn it back over to you.
Way cool, Kelvin. I mean, you've expanded this outreach to a new level. One quick question for you. What kind of entry points, if you're just starting to think about this thing new, what are the kind of entry points to make these kind of connections across the community that seem to be, what priority order, and go to the chamber, knock on doors?
That's a great question, Don. I would probably say there's no specific method. When I got here to Vegas, again, I've been, though I've done this a few times, right? But I literally was not only just visiting my library branches, but I was meeting with, the city council, of course, the county commissioners, but I even went further. And when I met with them, I would talk about how I thought that the library needed to be on the buses, for example. And you remember this project that we launched.
Right.
We were on all 400 of the buses that for the Regional Transit Commission. That partnership was established a month after I got here. So I got here in February. I met with them in March. We launched the project in September. So I think just getting out, being in the community, and being in places and spaces where people don't expect the library to be, right? So when I go to places and I'm in all these different meetings and socials, and it's not easy. It's tiring, actually. But when I show up and I introduce myself and say, I'm the Las Vegas Clark County Library District Director, the first, you start getting the questions, right? Do libraries still exist? Do people still need libraries? What about? And then that's when you start educating. I start educating them on what it is that we do, that we're not just a book warehouse repository, we're not just that. We're so many more things, as you touched on at the beginning, all the things that we do and are called on to do. During you're going to be talking to the Florida and North Carolina folks. Remember, I was in Florida. Library branch managers were shelter managers when I was in Broward. So we do all of that. And so when you're telling people these things, when they see me again, I just saw somebody last Saturday at another event. I had met him about a year plus ago, and we were having this entire debate, more or less, about the need for libraries. He works at a casino, works for one of the casinos, and I was explaining to him how my job my role, I believe, is to bring people into the library, and that I compete with the casinos here in Las Vegas. And so he looked at me with a strange look and says, "How do you compete with the casinos?" I said, "Because I'd rather have them in the library than the casino. So I'm going to launch programs like Tales and Cocktails, which is it's a book club. We get about 100 people on a Friday night once a month at 6 o'clock. We give them a couple drinks. They talk about books. That's how I'm doing that. And then, on and on and on. And so that's how you do it. And then the guy, and after I told him this story, now he started to get it, right? He's like, "Oh, I get it now. I understand what you're saying." And that's the premise. So long answer, but there's no right or wrong. I think you just, at least again, my advice, and I was just having a conversation with my staff yesterday about, why do people go into CVS or Walgreens or vice versa? And how do we get that same thought across to have people come into the library versus Barnes and Noble, versus shopping online and Amazon and using Audible? And so when you start sitting down and really thinking about that and establishing and understanding and surveying and getting the answers, those are the things that we libraries need to continue to do to serve the communities and the people, and get those people that don't come to the library. All right,
Yeah.
I'm stopping, Don, because I'm
That's
passionate about
great.
this
That's
morning.
a great answer. That's not the library of the future. That's the library today. I mean, just letting people know we're doing that already today. We've been doing that for years. But, like you say, I didn't know that. It's the refrain, right? I didn't know you did that. So, programming and networking, it sounds like programming, draw people in, networking, what do you do? And we'd love to work with you and all that. That's a great roadmap. We're going to come back to that. But right now, we'd like to turn it over to Joyce, and welcome Joyce for the first time here. And please, Joyce, share your.
Oh, Kelvin, you make me want to be I was a public librarian at the Free Library of Philadelphia for 12 years. You make me want to be a public librarian again. And you also reminded me of, there was a wonderful campaign that St. Paul Public Libraries did a few years back. And their tagline was, "We're not in the book business, we're in the St. Paul business," which, those sorts of things touch me. I noticed Steve Abrams in the audience, and he talked about Toronto a while back and how he got citizens to recognize that there were ebooks and audiobooks that they could read. And like all these dumb moments hit me sometimes, like, of course, this is true. Why aren't we doing more about it? But what Steve suggested, and I think it was not only Steve, but a group, was to advertise in the transportation centers, to put the ads on the train where people need audiobooks. Like, anyway, but back to me. And, my domain these days has been in preparing your new librarians. So I am at Rutgers University working in the LIS program. I teach students across the concentrations, including the school librarians, and I'm coordinator of the school librarianship concentration. But I also teach a course in Search, which kind of gets me into some of the things I've been thinking about relating to the future. And so I'm going to do a bunch of different things, go from my notes to my slides, because the things that we were talking about in my chapter and what I've been thinking about relating to the future relate to 3 or 4 different areas. But in that chapter that I wrote for this book, we had to leave out these 2 fables that I had anchoring the chapter, and I think they're relevant here. So first is the story of the frog, or the parable of frog. And you know these, but I'm just giving these to you for context. So if you place a frog in a pot of boiling water, it will react quickly and jump out. But if you place that frog in a pot of cold water and slowly heat it, I know this is icky, you'll eventually wind up with a boiled frog. Speaking to our ability to recognize and respond to early signs of change and the threats around us, that sort of reaction is critical. We had hoped to end with another fable, and that's Aesop's fable of the crow and the pitcher. In that one, a thirsty crow wanted water from a pitcher, and what he did was fill the pitcher with pebbles. That allowed him to raise the water level so he could drink. And what I think is exciting about that is that there really are pebbles all around us too. Kelvin, you mentioned all the elements of community that you're able to pull into that pitcher, media, local business, alcohol, all those things. Anyway, how are we gathering these pebbles? What actions are we really taking? And how are we avoiding complacency? And especially right now, how are we avoiding complacency in a period where we're still getting over the remnants of COVID? We're faced with defunding of libraries across the ecosystem. We are faced with book bans at a level we've never faced before. And the information landscape, to top it all off, is shifting dramatically, which is where I'd like to start. Are you all with me? Okay, good. So let me do a little share screen, and I'm going to flip through some things that are part of some of my lectures for my students. So, whoops, that's not going to work. My screen share is not showing here right now. Let's see if I can fix that. 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to get all the way up to the top of this thing. So I have, oh, that's not even the right one. That's the right one. Okay, so I've been thinking about a lot of things that are changing, and maybe I won't show full screen right now. Let's see how this looks. All right, so one of the things I'd like to mention is the things that we're talking about and the things in Library 2035 are also mentioned in ALA's State of Libraries, and also the IFLA listed trends for 2024. Knowledge practices are changing. AI and other technologies are transforming society. Trust is being renegotiated. And I want to skip down to digital technologies are unevenly distributed. Information systems are using more resources, and people are seeking community connections. Absolutely echo what's in the book. And our practice has to adjust to these trends. One of my thought leader heroes, Mary Ellen Bates, wrote in Computers and Libraries, just as we used to explain inverted indexes and control vocabulary to our users when introducing them to databases, we now need to explain the importance of developing chatbot prompts that do more than confirm our unconscious biases. And just as generative AI becomes ubiquitous, it's critical that librarians and search professionals are now seen as AI whisperers as well as superheroes. And so, you know, I think on the education level, there has been a great de facto migration of students, young people and adults to generative AI tools. And there is a de facto transition in the way we need to operate, in my opinion. And so in schools, we need to consider all of these regulations. And I wanted to skip down to here. So I think a lot, it's about schools, and I think about what's educator and what is student-facing uses, and the importance of our advice to keep humans in the loop. And so what I think about in terms of search, which is one of my areas of interest, is now we're able, as we teach people how to find things, we're able to combine the notions of keywords and queries with the semantic prompt. And it sounds really geeky, but it is so powerful. And so what we're able to do is it's no longer critical that we get the exact keywords and control vocabulary. We can actually mitigate the issue of vocabulary, of limited knowledge and vocabulary. And so we can use natural language searching for advantage in academic search. And I'm going to give you some use cases in a minute. I have not enough time to do this whole thing, so I will tell you there are so many constraints, and this is my list of them. But I also wanted to focus right here, because I only have a few minutes, on some of the positive things. So this one, I think, blew my mind when I started thinking about it. If you think of semantic search, all right, we've been using Control F since the beginning of computers to find words in things. But if you think of semantic search, like the large language models and also the emerging search tools for AI, what you've got is now, instead of a Control F for words, you have a Control F for ideas and concepts. And that is a huge shift in the way we think about finding things. And so I want to kind of talk about how that works with use cases. And somebody's going to have to tell me when to shift to my next topic, because I'll probably blow this. So there's a bunch of use cases, and I'm going to skip over to a few other things down here and get to some use cases. In fact, just today, crazy things are happening at Google. Google just announced a new kind of deep research assistant. But let me talk about some use cases. So imagine you're using a large language model, and I'm talking about Gemini, and I'm talking about ChatGPT, and I'm talking about Llama, and I'm talking about Claude. So there's about 5 big ones. But why not use large language models in deep ways for research? So among the questions I ask my students to ask large language models, which academic databases are most promising for X? Which magazines or journals, and I can say which trade magazines, which academic journals, which keywords might I use when I search a database? What is the controlled vocabulary for a topic? And I'll show you examples of that. Which primary sources exist that are powerful for my AP US History project around the Gilded Age in American history? Who are the expert sources for something? Who are the seminal writers? Does gray literature exist in this area, like a 4-H pamphlet or something like that, or something that's unpublished in a repository? Are there, and this is a really powerful question, are there LibGuides about the thing I'm researching, so I can contact a librarian somewhere across the world who has gathered this knowledge for me in a really powerful way? Do digital libraries exist? And there are digital libraries in each region of the world that we hardly ever touch. And so these are the types of prompts that I tell my students that they might be using. And I probably shouldn't do too many of these use cases. But what are these prompts? Here's one for a student coming into public library researching the Civil War. Suggest primary source research portals or documents that I need to get to help me understand the causes. Give me some ideas for research. I want to do a project on Latina poets. Who are the Latina poets who are in the field of knowledge or scope that I can work with? Let's see. Identify, okay, that's not a good one. This is an example of controlled vocabulary on ADHD across ERIC, PsycInfo, and MESH databases. And now I've got a load of terms I can use when I'm doing my search. For reader's advisory, I haven't read enough yet in Afrofuturism, and it hasn't yet become a cataloging topic in most catalogs. But if I ask for top award-winning Afrofuturist books, or kind of refine that prompt in various different ways, what are the bestsellers? What are the most highly rated? Which ones appear on ALA lists? Then I immediately gather these things, which might not ordinarily have tags. What are the read-alikes? In this case, I asked for the Hate U Give, and I got some really decent read-alikes. So when a patron comes in, if it's not a genre I'm reading in, I can mitigate that knowledge. We're also seeing impact in cataloging. So because these things can create code and you can download code, this is not necessarily perfect. Everything has to be evaluated. All outputs should be interrogated, but I can come up with some code on the fly, get it in an artifact window, and then upload it. I can also reduce text complexity and translate things for patrons. That I think is really powerful. And this is my translation. And I can also recommend new search tools for academics like Elicit and Perplexity and Brave, and they all have different abilities. We're also seeing the large language models kind of go into something called retrieval augmented generation. So this kind of work where it is going to a body of knowledge that we've selected, and I'll show you what that looks like, rather than the large language models, whatever their data set is, we're telling it where to go, literally. And so these tools can be really powerful. So I'm going to just show you, this is what retrieval augmented generation is. And it is showing up everywhere now. So it is now in JSTOR. There's a lot of articles. It's in a search engine that I love called Perplexity. It's going into, let me just see if I can find EBSCO. It's going in, ProQuest 1 now has it, Elsevier now has it. And so what is happening now is in the databases, you can compensate for lack of knowledge relating to subject headings and probably over time. So I can't talk about anything else. But it is really powerful, and students can, and researchers can have conversations with articles, can get summaries, and then they can have connected articles. So you're seeing this notion of how we can do author chaining and citation chaining backwards and forwards automatically, like Spotify. And so do you want me to stop now before I go into anything else? Because I don't think I have enough time.
I don't want you to stop at all, Joyce. But
you don't, but I think other people probably do.
We are running a little short on time and like to, open it up a little more, but just fascinating. You really open a door to a lot of possibilities, a lot of exciting development.
Let me just say one thing. The
Please.
stuff below that was all about using Michael Caulfield's SIFT method to interrogate output. So I'm not saying use stuff as is or right out of the box. I'm saying use the information literacy skills that we're all behind to work with output from generative AI. Use authority checks, and also to look at, when people are doing this work, to expect transparency, honesty, and levels of established creativity and credibility, using it like a stop sign, green, yellow, red. Teachers have to kind of come up with that. And we're in, and this whole notion of transparency. In what ways did you use generative AI in any kind of research project? And what worked, what didn't work, and what part of it is yours? This level of transparency, honesty, and reflection is, I think, going to be newly important.
Indeed. Your list of prompts is especially impressive to me. That how to guide these tools is a real skill, and yet your terms are really straightforward. And there's so much more to talk about. I think we're going to just have to do another session on AI, and for the next how many years we can talk about that. There are a few questions here. One kind of ties into the mention of renegotiated trust. And there's a lot, of course, going on right now. We've thought about libraries as, like the most trusted institution that we've got. That's historically perhaps been true, but lately it's been challenged in a way that we've never seen before. And so the question is there was a question about bringing people in to have community conversations, but are reluctant by the trustees because they don't want to invite controversy into the library. But it seems like it's a useful thing for libraries to host relevant conversations in the community. So what can we say about managing that kind of an activity and scheduling it? So Sandy, do you have anything to say about that? I know Kelvin does. And I'd be surprised if Joyce didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching the discussion. I see that Sharon's been very active there, and she has a lot of really good ideas and suggestions that I think are excellent. But I'm a big believer in the strategic planning and foresight, and going through those exercises collaboratively with your community, so that you're engaging all the stakeholders in a conversation. And I think it's through things like those activities where we're working together to engage with each other. I think that we could maybe address some of these kinds of concerns, and also build up our remind people about our shared values and concerns and some of the things that we all are trying to do together, I think, to be really connected and embedded with our communities.
So you would start with kind of the core library family of trustees and friends and elected, or
Not even just that. No, I think even engaging in community conversations with the community itself, like not just the core library users, but I think we can't just stay insular like that. I think we need to be engaging with like all different types of people, because the library is the centerpiece and the cornerstone of a community. And so it needs to be representative, inclusive, and engaging all aspects of that community.
But wouldn't you need the support of the trustees and so forth to enter into those kinds of conversations, or no?
Yeah, well, so maybe
Yeah,
Joyce
I'd say
or
yes and
Kelvin.
yes and no, Don, in my opinion. I mean, trustees elected, appointed, it's a challenge. I was trying to answer Dave's question. That's why I wanted to understand like how, how the trustees were, because that matters, right? I think it matters. And so I agree with Sandy. It's the community getting out there, but I've put in some strategies of briefing. Like I brief my trustees. I have these like intimate conversations. When I first got here, I had one of my trustees very much on the other opposite of me. Let's just say that, right? His political views were opposite. He believed we should have guns in the libraries, all of these things, right? And he didn't believe in having the LGBTQIA material and resources in the library, and none and certainly not having the conversations, right? So as the library director, and I guess maybe who I am as well, I leaned into those conversations with him though, right? And though we still didn't agree on from a political standpoint, we did both believe in what the library is and what our mission and vision and supporting the community. Because what I would do is I would give examples of looking at it from, they talk about walking in somebody's shoes. I would give like that example when somebody said to me, I don't think that you should be having drag queen story time. And this was an African American man, friend of mine actually. And we were chat. He says, because I wouldn't bring my boys. I would challenge you to ask you not to do that. And what I asked him was, or said to him was, you're actually doing the same thing that they're trying to do down in Florida by getting rid of history, right? But and putting it so sometimes it's putting it in people's perspectives that they understand, whether they be the trustees, whether they be elected officials, people in the community, etc. So that's my thoughts. But I again agree with Sandy, getting it out there. Like I'm on the radio, right? I'm talking about intellectual freedom on the NPR, the public radio station. I get interviewed by different radio personalities, not just on one show. I'll be on the Tuesday show, the Saturday morning show. I'm on the news, and my staff is on the news. So it's like again, it's promoting the library. It's promoting, we just started something to promote individual staff. We've probably highlighted about 100 of our staff members on LinkedIn just to demonstrate the diversity within the library and where people come from and their background. And so that's connecting with the community, and that I mean, it all helps and benefits when you're trying to have these uh difficult conversations,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
nobody likes that. Like
yeah.
nobody likes that, but you have to have them.
That's good. That's good. I think that's a trust building activity, just to engage people, hopefully. There was a question about staff training for this kind of rollout. I think Sharon was referring to the outreach. Um,
I just want to, I want to highlight something.
Please.
Yesterday, there was a big celebration in New Jersey, and I see some New Jersey people here. There was the celebration for the right to, the Freedom to Read Act. And on a state level, our government and the government in New Jersey is supporting librarians against book bans. And so it is also very hard for somebody to come in who's become a dear friend as a library member or patron to try to hurt you, or to really be that angry and to not have a conversation. But there are multiple types of people. So I think you need that relationship building, the understanding, the walking in the other person's shoes. That's really important. But then there really are lunatics. Most of Americans are behind the freedom to read. I posted this wakelet that I've been keeping that's kind of logging challenges and effective defenses and legislation and all. Some of the things I'm reading relating to what just happened in those two cases are on that. And so you may want to check that out. But I think we need to build formal coalitions as well as those relationships. Yeah, it has to happen on all those fronts, because a lot of other people are working in really organized groups.
Well, this is new, and this is a kind of a new muscle, library muscle that needs to be developed, because libraries have been kind of defenseless against these kinds of attacks because they just haven't had them before. So now you're starting to see that. I think the New Jersey news was really great, great to hear. There was a list of what libraries might be and do. I just wanted to share what we pulled of libraries are. So these are speakers, these are non-librarians who were asked, to just respond to libraries are. And we had some great comments here. Islands of truth and a typhoon of disinformation, magical, these kinds of things that we hope might be useful for local campaigns, and inviting people in your community that are not the library to make public statements about the library and build up recognition that way. We're running over a little bit. This is not a TV show, so everybody is welcome to stay, but we really want to respect your time and your commitment. Thank you already. But it seems like there's more to talk about. What I'd like to do is go around and kind of ask our speakers for sort of a final statement, and then if we want to hang out and talk a little more, that's fine. So, Sandy, would you like to make a concluding statement on this vast area that we've just skipped along the surface of today?
Yeah, there's so much to dive in here, and I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation, and especially with such excellent co-presenters with Joyce and Kelvin. I'm so inspired by the work that you both do. And I just would like to leave on a positive note. And there is a lot to be worried about for the future. I mean, we have many things, but I do think that I'm glad, Don, that you put up that slide, because I've seen that you share that before, and I think that it's really I think that a lot of those quotes really capture why libraries are so essential, and so why I feel bullish about their future is because I do feel that the library is the cornerstone of a community, and it is the place that will help us as those bastions of democracy, et cetera. So I think that I feel that as long as we are connected to our community, as long as we are continuing to evolve and change to align with the community's needs, that we will be in have a strong future and play a very critical role as we move through challenging times.
Wonderful, wonderful. Couldn't possibly say that any better. Thank you, Sandy. Kelvin.
Yes.
Yeah, again, I'll say thank you again, Don, for always inviting me to, It's always a pleasure to join Sandy and Joyce, and we've done this a few times now, and to hear from my colleagues, and certainly the work that they do, we do. I'll reiterate with Sandy, and I mentioned this when I spoke before. Despite the challenges, I remain optimistic, right? I'm keeping this smile on my face, and we're leaning into the work. We're changing people's lives, literally changing people's lives. And that's what keeps me coming. I mean, the stories of not the statistics and the data of that we gave out, 5 more library cards, but that when I know that the library district was able to participate in a program to help, unhoused individuals get homes. That's why I remain optimistic. I remain optimistic in that. And those are the stories that, again, the impacts that we can have and we're going to continue to have. Like you mentioned earlier, we're not talking about the future. The future is now. Like AI is now. Chat, like all of that is now. And and actually it's been now. That's the other piece of this. Has been now. We've been in the now. And we just have to continue to execute and do what we need to do day in and day out. So happy holidays to everybody as well.
Bravo. Bravo. Joyce, please.
Yeah. The part that I wasn't able to talk about, several of the parts had to do with radical change and human-centered, empathy-driven change. And I was inspired about that when I read Will Guidara's Unreasonable Hospitality. The combination of those two words that don't ordinarily go together really inspired me. Things like "it might not work" is a terrible reason not to try. And no one who ever changed the game did so by being reasonable. No aspect of your business should be off limits to reevaluation. Nothing is sacred. All of those things I hear in Kelvin's comments and in the leaders that I admire in the library world. And if I can share just the screen for just a second longer, I'll do this. One of the things I wrote an article for Knowledge Quest about this, and I want us to think about the whole notion of sacred cows. And in the terms, in Angela Davis's definition of the word radical, how might we connect the word radical, grabbing at the roots, with any of the operations or the services that we offer our communities? What does radical collection building look like? What does radical staffing look like? What does radical scheduling look like? What does radical partnership look like in terms of optimism, justice, joy, hospitality, and hope? And see what that intersection looks like, and get out of any ruts that most of us are not in ruts, but you can get out of any rut by just doing a little thinking of unreasonable and radical change with that's empathy centered. So I'm going to stop sharing, and thank you for sharing your time with us today, everybody. And it was a pleasure to see Kelvin, Sandy, and my new friend Don again.
A new friend indeed. This has been great, and it heartens me and reinforces my belief that libraries are just the most natural institution. They're an organic emergence of a community. This is obvious that sharing resources is the kind of thing people do. People that are around each other, physically proximate to each other, naturally do, because it's to everybody's advantage. And so they need a mechanism, an institution to facilitate that and organize that and formalize that. And I think libraries are going to be kind of the last institution standing, and probably the first one to reemerge out of the collapse of civilization if that happens. So it just seems so natural, and I know it's not inevitable, but it seems like it is. So thank you all for this. It's just been fantastic. I can't wait to watch this recording again. There's so much in there. I hope you'll be available to follow up and come back. Really, we need to do all of these. We need to have each one of you for a full hour and dive into so many things here. So I'm going to ask Stephen if he's still with us to stop the recording.